Can the Gophers make it 3 in a row? That is the big question heading into week 9.
You are Locked On Golden Gophers, your daily podcast on the Minnesota Golden Gophers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Gopher fans? You're listening to Locked On Golden Gophers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Kane Rob, host of the podcast, former collegiate football video coordinator and recruiting assistant, here to talk Golden Gophers with you each and every day of the week, Monday through Friday. Now, last week we were off with the Gophers on bye week, not intentionally, but my little man got sick, and then the rest of the household got a little bit sick, and we've all been fighting some stuff. So I'm glad to be back at it again, getting ready for Maryland, but the voice is still a little bit touch and go. So hopefully we can make it through this whole show without any coughs or random hiccups, but bear with me as we get through it. Now, today we're looking at Maryland, which is the next opponent on the Gophers schedule as we enter the back half of the season. Now, the Gophers have had back-to-back wins to close off heading into the bye week, but can they keep that trajectory going into this next week? That's going to be the big question, and they're heading on to take an opponent on in Maryland, coming off another major victory against USC. So both of these teams feeling the swell of positive emotions around their programs, coming off of wins or multiple wins. And so that's going to enter the battle of who can keep it going. So when you're looking at this Maryland matchup, you're definitely looking at a team that has a chance at beating the Gophers. I think it could be a very close game. Maryland has got a lot of love in the offseason, but things didn't start off so well for them. And they were placed in front of Minnesota in most rankings heading into the season. Now, I think this is a very winnable game for Minnesota, and I've been saying that since before the season kicked off, especially with it being at home, especially with it being homecoming weekend. And we're going to find out this weekend. Now, this is a game Minnesota will need a win, in my opinion, in order to make a bowl game, because nothing beyond this week is safe. Rutgers feels like the next game where you can go in and you can get a win. But those two need both of them to get bowl eligibility. Everything else beyond that is a game that you are going to have to scrap out. Illinois, Penn State, Wisconsin, all those games, you're going to have to find a way nitty gritty through it all. And hopefully the Gophers can do that anyway and find a 7 or 8 win season. But beyond that, you want to make sure you get bowl eligibility and get above or at 500 after a struggling down year of last season. So like I said, this is a game that Minnesota is going to need to get a W. And on top of that, it'll be homecoming. There will be many alums in town. The energy and the vibe should be high. It's a great atmosphere. So Minnesota is going to need a jolt from the fans, but also with a win in this game, it will jolt fan optimism with 3 straight wins, especially with the more fair weather fans getting ready to get back on board with the Gophers hype train. Now, when you're looking at this Gophers-Maryland matchup, I think there are 3 make or breaks in this matchup. The first one being you have to change the picture on quarterback Billy Edwards Jr. and really test them and create chaos. But with that, you have to get heavy pressure on this quarterback because passing is this Maryland team's strength, and it makes it difficult. But the Gophers have a very good pass defense, and if you can get your pressure to the quarterback, it makes their quarterback, their passing game, their strength more uncomfortable. So that is priority number 1 in the make or breaks. Number 2, turnovers will likely be the game changer in this game. Both Minnesota and Maryland are in the top 10 when it comes to turnovers gained in the country. So both these teams have relied on creating turnovers, and they're going to be relying on it once again in this week. And I think whoever wins this turnover battle could be a major winner of the week. And then finally, whoever has the more explosive special teams play could truly be the winner of this one, whether it's flipping the field, whether it's a return touchdown, whether it's a blocked punt or a blocked kick, what have you. I think the winner of special teams, along with the winner of turnovers, and then being able to change the picture on Billy Edwards Jr. are the top three make or breaks for this week. Now, when you're looking at the strengths of this Maryland team, you're looking at a team that has an extremely experienced offensive coordinator. They have an extremely experienced head coach. They have staff continuity. It's a team that has figured it out. They've come from a Bama program, and they've helped build some winning mentality at Maryland. So overall, you love that staff continuity. You love the head coach who takes risks, who is timely, has a lot of play calling ability to him. And then you also pair it with a quarterback who has stepped up quickly and taken the reins without a hiccup, without a hitch. Billy Edwards Jr. has made it look like Talia Tagovailoa maybe never left. He's keeping the production high in the pass game and feeding two top receivers in the conference. On top of that, you have a ton of returning pass catchers on your team, in a tight end, in two receivers. I think it was three receivers that were kind of involved from last year that carried over to this year. Their running back who is involved a little bit in the passing game. So overall, they have a healthy amount of pass catchers returning and a conference leading wide receiver on the team. And then finally, they had a good amount of defensive players coming back, which has helped them become a top 15 team in run defense and a top 10 team in turnovers gained. Now, the weaknesses of this Maryland team include a patchwork offensive line, which is very, very sparse to say the least. On top of that, they have no game changer on the defensive line. So the trenches is not a strength for this Maryland team. And thus they are 75th or 76th in the country in sacks. They're actually tied with the Gophers on that stat, but they don't have a lot of guys that put fear into your offensive line. So hopefully the Gophers offensive line, which has been up and down all season, can get it together for this matchup. And then finally, I would say that their running back room is a little bit shallow behind Roman Hemby. Now, the run game has been troublesome for them and not against opposing teams, which is promising for the Gophers defense because the run game has typically been a weakness for Minnesota on this season. Now, defensively, this defense has been doing fairly well or as a whole when it needs to, but production-wise, it hasn't been great for them. Their saving grace is stopping the run and creating turnovers, like I've mentioned. Now, their total defense, they're 79th, so they're right about in the middle of the country. Run defense, they are tied for 15th. Or no, they're 15th overall, not tied. Pass defense, they're 119th in the country. And then scoring defense, they are 75th. And then turnovers, they are tied for 8th. So if Minnesota can trust Brosmer and they can let him get comfortable and they can let him get into a rhythm and build upon his successes over the last 3 games especially, I think Minnesota will thrive in this matchup. Now, in Max Brosmer's last 3 games, he has gone 68 of 96, which is 70.8% completion percentage, on top of 207 passing yards per game, 3 pass touchdowns, 3 rush touchdowns, a 133.3 passer rating, and 2 game-winning touchdown drives in the fourth quarter, nearly 3 in that factor. So overall, Max Brosmer has been cooking in the last 3 games, and hopefully he can continue to do that against this Maryland team. They should be able to attack this Maryland defense through the air. Now, offensively, Maryland's past offense is about as accomplished as what Minnesota saw with USC's prior to their matchup. They are currently ranked 9th in the country in passing offense. And the Gophers had less to worry about on the weakness aspect, like I had mentioned, of that run aspect, because Maryland hasn't been very killer in that regards. They're 102nd in the country in rushing offense, but I would expect Maryland to try and test Minnesota's run defense because it has been such a weakness for them on the season. Now, this is another game Minnesota should win, in my opinion, and Minnesota is currently favored by 4.5 points, though the total scoring line for this game is 46.5 points, which isn't all that high. So overall, it could go either way. It's a close single score touchdown line. And we will see what happens with this Gophers team. But next, we're going to talk about the players to focus on with Maryland and who the Gophers have to slow down. That's what's coming up next. First, I want to talk to you about a new friend of the show in ZBiotics, because ZBiotics is the pre-alcohol probiotic drink It's the world's first genetically engineered probiotic, and it was invented by a PhD scientist to tackle the rough mornings after drinking. And here's how it works: when you drink, alcohol gets converted into toxic bioproduct in the gut. It's this bioproduct, not the dehydration, that's to blame for the rough next day. So pre alcohol produces an enzyme to break down this byproduct. Just remember to make ZBiotics your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, and you will feel your best tomorrow. So I don't drink personally, but I have had friends that are like, man, thank you for telling me about this, because this stuff is the truth. So you're definitely going to want to give it a try. And here's how you use it. Step 1, drink pre-alcohol for the best results. Make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night. Step 2, drink responsibly, pace yourself, hydrate, and get a good night's sleep. And step number 3, enjoy tomorrow. Wake up feeling refreshed and ready to take on the day. So go to zbiotics.com/lockedoncollege to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use Locked On College at checkout. ZBiotics is backed with 100% money back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. But remember to head to zbiotics.com/lockedoncollege and use Locked On College at the checkout for 15% off. All right, Gophers fans, we're going to talk about the 3 players that you have to slow down this week against Maryland in order to get the dub here in Dinkytown. And the player that you have to have top of mind at the top of your list is Billy Edwards Jr., plain and simple, the quarterback for the Maryland Terrapins. Now, he is the leading passer, and he practically is this offense. He has been doing pretty great job of filling that Tagovailoa void, so to speak, that I had mentioned. I had huge hesitations of this Maryland offense heading into the season. I thought they were going to be a very poor team because I thought they were going to have some major hiccups. In fact, I thought MJ Morris was going to be the quarterback, and I was far, far wrong. But Billy Edwards Jr. has been holding it down, and he has been doing great things. He is the Big Ten leading passer with 2,113 yards passing so far. He is also 8th in the entire nation in passing yards. On top of that, he has a 13 touchdown to 4 interception ratio right now, and he boasts a 70.1% completion percentage, which is 6th in the Big Ten, one ahead of Max Brosmer. He's also on the offense. The passing offense is the 9th best passing offense in the country. Once again, this will be a game of strength versus strength. The Gophers' top 5 passing defense versus the Terrapins' top 10 passing offense. So Billy Edwards is definitely player number 1 you're going to have to slow down, but a player that he loves to throw the ball to is Ty Felton, and that's another player you have to slow down in this matchup because this is by far and away their lead wide receiver. And with the Big Ten, he is the leading wide receiver of the conference as well with 803 yards, and he is tied for 3rd in the conference with touchdowns when it comes to that with 6 touchdown catches. Now, he is averaging 114 yards per game, but he is 5th in the country in receiving yards with his 803. So overall, he has to be on the top of the Gophers list. Justin Wally's probably going to see a lot of coverage against him. Safety help is going to be on this guy. But overall, he has 64 receptions, which also leads the conference. So he's catching a ton of balls, he's getting a lot of production, and he's getting in the end zone. Ty Felton is a real problem, and he is Billy Edwards Jr. number 1 target. So in your head, you might be thinking, okay, well, just double him. Just add safety help, just double down on him and take him out of the game. Make them pass to somebody else. Well, they still have another receiver who has 43 receptions, 461 yards, and 3 touchdowns in Caden Prather. So you can't really afford to double down on Ty Felton the whole game. Otherwise, Caden Prather will pick you apart. So the Gophers secondary is going to have to be on one and playing its best ball, but also the Gophers pass rush has to get home to the quarterback faster than they have in any game this season in order to give Minnesota its best chance in that passing defense statistic. So overall, Ty Felton, Billy Edwards, those are the top 2 guys on the offense to definitely slow down in order to have a chance. But you flip it to the other side of the ball, and you got to worry a little bit about Glendon Miller. He's a D-back for the Maryland Terrapins, and this man is a difference maker in the secondary for Maryland. Now, Maryland's strength of defense is the run game. So Minnesota will definitely want to attack through the air, especially if they hold strong like UCLA held strong. But overall, that means slowing down Glendon is a key on the passing side of things because Glendon has been a difference maker for this Maryland team. 4 interceptions, 2 pass breakups on the season, and a fumble recovery. He's not just a coverage guy. He is a difference maker. So you have to make sure you know where he is and how to attack or how to get separation with him and Daniel Jackson. And he is third on the team in tackles as well with 27 tackles. So overall, Glendon Miller he's timely. He is timely with his turnovers, and this is a huge game that Minnesota can't afford to turn the ball over in, especially because both these teams thrive off turnovers. So whoever gets the most turnovers in this game probably wins the game, and you need to make sure Glendon Miller is not helping this team be the turnover winning program in this matchup. So those are my top 3 players that Minnesota has to slow down moving forward into week 9 in order to make it 3 straight victories, in order to be 5-3 on the season, in order to be 1 win away from bowl eligibility. So those are the 3 players to slow down, but we're going to talk about my biggest concerns in this matchup to wrap up today's shorter show. I appreciate y'all for listening. I appreciate y'all for topping in. Be sure to hit subscribe over on YouTube. But next, we're talking about the 3 biggest concerns in the Maryland matchup. What could stop Minnesota from making it 3 in a row? That's what we're diving into coming up next. First, it wouldn't be a show without talking to you about our friends over at Gametime. So Gametime is the place to be when it comes to ticketing apps, and Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes it getting tickets to your favorite teams to play even easier. And Gametime's Picks filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to take all the extra time or waste time searching through the thousands of different ticketing options that Gametime has. In fact, it has curated deals, making it easier to find the best prices on great seats, a super deal, seat views before you buy, the lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, job loss protection. Gametime makes it easy so you don't have to worry about the headaches that come along with big events, but you can just start looking forward to it and feel protected and covered for your next big event. And it's not just sports. They've got concerts, they've got comedy, they've got theater, they've got all of it, you name it. And my favorite feature is if you toggle it, be sure to toggle it, the all-in pricing feature. You'll get your total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. So overall, give Gametime a try. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime Picks. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. All right, Gophers fans, we have a quicker show for today, but we will be back at it again tomorrow. Now, to wrap up today's show, we're going to talk about my biggest concerns for this game. But before we do that, I do want to mention that you need to tap into Locked On Minnesota Sports each and every Saturday after the Gophers games, because we are doing a live Gophers postcast to talk about what happened, rain or shine, ups or downs, win or loss. We talk about your Gophers and what they need to do moving forward, but also what we just witnessed in that game. Why did PJ make that call? How great it was that PJ did this. How great it was that Brosmer did that. We're talking about it all on the live Gophers postcast over at Locked On Minnesota Sports. So be sure to tap in each and every Saturday on the live YouTube channel after your Gopher games. But like I said, we're wrapping up today's show by talking about my biggest concerns for this Maryland versus Gophers game. So the number one concern for me right away is having a slow start. Now, you might be telling yourself, Kane, we've had some slow starts in almost every matchup we've had. The offense has been slow. It takes a while for us to get scoring. We usually don't score in the first quarter, and I hear that. I hear all of it. But Minnesota is coming off of a bye week, which could be a blessing for them in getting more players healthy. But Minnesota has also been generally pretty solid heading out of the bye week with practice and extra time to dive into the tape and what have you. But that said, Maryland is coming off a major win against USC, and they could be feeling that momentum to get back on track, to prove people that this is the direction they're headed in. So Minnesota has already been slow starting on offense in most games of the season. game. So a longer delay on top of that in offensive success could be dooming for this Gophers team. So they have to get out hot, they have to get out fast, and they have to put some points on the board in a hurry. So a slow start is definitely a big concern of mine. Now, concern number 2 is the run defense, because if it is once again stifling, that can throw Minnesota off a little bit. It came down to the wire to beat UCLA. You don't want to keep having these down to the wire games. You've had a down to the wire game versus Michigan, versus USC, versus UCLA. Those become exhausting after a while. So you need a game where you can just lay it all out there, get a big lead, and win comfortably. And this is an opportunity that I think the Gophers can try and do that, but they need to have some ground game. They need to have some control of the clock. And if UCLA and Iowa games, if they're watching the film of those games, and let me tell you, they are watching the film of those games, if they take tidbits here and there and find the successes to give this Minnesota offensive line problems, and then take out a player like Darius Taylor and not have as much success on the ground game, that can hurt this passing, or that can hurt this offense as a whole, but it also can put a lot of pressure on the pass game. So hopefully Minnesota is able to find some sense of push on the offensive line and get back on track. Now, the final concern that I have in this game is slowing down the 2 top-end receivers for the Maryland Terrapins, 2 top-end wide receivers in the conference. You got a guy who's above 400 yards, and you've got a guy who's above 800 yards. So overall, you have 2 real weapons with 9 total touchdowns as wide receivers for the Maryland Terrapins, and a quarterback who can get them the ball with the leading passer of the conference and the top 10 passer in the nation. That's something to be concerned about, because USC and UCLA have both had some successes throwing the ball, but they haven't had a number 1 option like Ty Felton. They haven't had a guy that the Gophers have to prioritize, and then another guy who has the talent right behind him. They've had more options where they're spreading it out and they're looking for the best opening and what have you. But these are guys you can force feed. These are guys who create difference making things. These are guys who you can throw a 50-50 ball to and go and trust that they're going to win it. So overall, it puts a lot of risk. It puts a lot of pressure on the secondary, and hopefully this Gophers team can continue to thrive in the pass defense and shut these guys down, or at least slow them down heavily in this matchup. So overall, this is a new animal for this Gophers defense, and it will definitely be a test and a challenge for the secondary. I think it's one that they're willing to accept, but you're going to have to step it up and keep on playing to the best of your ability, and this Gophers defense has done that time and time again, and hopefully they answer the call once more this week in Week 9 versus the Maryland Terrapins. So those are my 3 biggest concerns. A slow start on the offense, the run defense is stifling our run game once again, and then slowing down the 2 top-end receivers for the Maryland Terrapins. Those are my top 3 concerns. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Let me know if you have other worries. Let me know if you think this is going to be a blowout. I want your thoughts. I want your opinions. I want to hear more about you and your Golden Gophers down in the comments over on YouTube. I appreciate you for listening. Until next time, which will be tomorrow, I'll see you then. Roll the boat, Sky Mako Gophers, as always, and please don't forget to hit subscribe.